bugs. And haggis, when I was in Scotland, did not try it. Refused to.
I mean, I would try if I was there and
it was prepared like street food, like you wouldn't know really. It was kind of like done on a griddle and like fried.
I mean,
and then stuffed back in.
When it's on the plate, it looks fine. It's more the horrifying thing is when it's like still in the big stomach and it just looks like a giant cyst.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I've eaten a lot of weird shit, and I'm actually pretty cool with you know, eating the offal, the parts of the animal that would otherwise go to waste. I think that's fine. But
that's how we got chicken wings, and now they're more expensive than any other part.
That's right.
Passenger clings onto outside of 175-mile-per-hour German train after doors shut him out on cigarette break. 99999.
Those trains are very fun. Like you ride on them and it's incredible because not only are they super fast, but they're smooth.
Yeah.
But
maglev, right? Is this one?
They're not maglev. This is the Intercity Express ICE trains, and I don't think they're maglev. They're just really fucking fast. And yeah, you can't smoke on these trains anymore because of woke. And so this guy, like usually on these trains when they stop at a station, there's like a 5-minute period where people are, because everyone has luggage and stuff. So this guy stepped out onto the platform for a smoke, and then would have had to have ignored repeated warnings that the train's about to take off. And then he's like, oh no, my luggage is still on there. So he just jumped onto the outside of this bullet train and held on for like 20 minutes or so before someone like on the freeway was like, call the police, there's a man on the side of that train.
Brad Pitt is trying to break into that train.
And yes, he was arrested.
I mean, at that point, I would be a relief to be arrested.
Yeah, take me away.
I would be frozen solid, like in my grip position.
Oh yeah, because it's cold right now.
Well, no, just from the death grip alone of like being that tight and holding on that hard.
It's also chilly outside.
And going that fast.
Take me to jail in the slowest police car you've got.
We gotta thaw him off. His dick is frozen to the train.
That would be. I mean, you're already hanging on to this train for dear life in a very like poorly thought out move, and then oh my god, the wind pulled my pants down. Oh god, oh no, my penis is flopping in the wind. Oh god, it's stuck to the outside of the train. What do I do?
All right, buddy, we got you. Let go. I did let go. He did let go, sir.
All right, pull him off. No! Ah!
Ow! It hits him really hard. It's funny for everyone.
Yeah.
The whole train's laughing.
Everyone except him.
Yeah, we were all upset because we didn't make it to our destination, but then we saw this guy get hit with his own dick.
Yeah.
Totally made the vacation.
Hit him in his own face.
Yeah. Rake stepped his own penis.
Progresso launches Soup Drops, a hard candy that's soup you can suck on.
Suck on this.
Taking Bravo.
I don't mind this. This is fine. It's a crafty little marketing idea.
Yeah, it's some viral marketing. All the food companies are doing this shit lately where they're like, let's come up with something stupid.
Yeah, and really get the name out.
And get the press release out there. This one, I'm like, I'm just really curious, is it sweet? Like, is there sugar added, or does it literally just taste like chicken soup?
Yeah, probably.
Because that's kind of nasty.
If it's Progresso, it's a pretty big conglomerate. Part of a conglomerate. I assume it's just chemicals that make it taste like that.
Yeah, I mean, this would be cool.
Like it's a Werther's original, but it's like beef stew or something.
This would be cool to have around if you're around kids a lot, because they're always asking for candy. They're always asking if you got games on your phone, and now you can be like, yeah, I got candy, kid.
Yeah.
Here, have one of these.
Yeah.
And then you get to watch them just be disgusted because like not only is it gross, but they're children, so they still got all their taste buds. And it's going to be just a truly awful experience for them.
Yeah.
And you get to say, and that's why you don't ask for candy. That lesson is you don't ask for candy. And that kid will learn a lesson that day.
Or he becomes hopelessly addicted to soup.
Yeah.
Hello, mother. What's the soup du jour? Oh, you've been at your grandmother's again, haven't you?
Oh, jeez.
Anti-aging fanatic Brian Johnson slammed for gross post tracking son's erection data.
This guy's got to stop.
Yeah.
Someone needs to stop him.
Yeah, this is not the behavior of a...
Yeah, he posted... He treats this shit like it's normal.
Now hold it.
Yeah, I know. He's bizarre.
He posted, I guess there's an app where you attach some sort of device, some contraption to your dick while you sleep, and it keeps track of, like, your erections and blood flow and shit. And it's bad enough that he's doing this for himself, but his son Talmadge Johnson, also is doing it for comparison's sake. And he's like, well, my son still gets, like, 5% more erect at night. So
losing
goals
Charlie.
to have. And people are like, why are you measuring your 19-year-old son's dick?
Is this how you really want to spend your one life on this planet?
It is how he wants to.
It's
and
bizarre.
It's baffling. He could be doing literally anything, but instead he's turned his own life into a science experiment.
And also, like, here's the thing. Like, this is weird even behind closed doors, this specific aspect of it. But even so, fine, whatever. This guy's a freak that wants to live forever and he's doing some weird science shit. The fact that he shoves his way into every, like, news cycle, and by his putting out press releases and doing everything, the fact that he wants people to know about this is even more disturbing.
There is that aspect of it. Every billionaire only wants attention. The one
It's
thing.
the only thing they can't get.
Yeah, but what is the deal with guys whose last name is Johnson and weird bonds with their sons over what their penises are up to?
Because their last name is Johnson. It's a euphemism for schlong.
Mike Johnson in Congress, him and his son, they got like a tattletale app on their phones to see if the other one's looking at porn Rooney.
Yeah.
And now Brian Johnson monitoring his son's erections on a fucking app. It's like we gotta do
It's all in
something
the
about
name. Johnson.
And then President Lyndon Johnson
had a big hammer, too.
huge fucking hog, and he would just like have it hanging to like intimidate senators
named
and
it,
shit.
right?
Yeah, called it Jumbo.
Yeah.
And as a power move, he'd just be hanging dong.
And of course, you have the famous 90s brand Big Johnson,
Yeah.
where, you know, every normal day-to-day activity could be turned into a sexual
Waiting for Gen Z to bring back Big Johnson.
Big Johnson. What are we talking about? Anyways, next headline.
Stripe accidentally sent an image of a duck when notifying some employees they were getting laid off.
Well, okay, this softens the blow a little bit, but I'd like to know about my severance, please.
Not even a photo of a duck, like a little cartoon, like clip art duck.
Yeah, it looked kind of AI-ish, too.
Like, please see attached.
Wow. Says it all, doesn't it?
Okay, well, I was pretty bummed out about losing my job, but at least I got this cartoon duck.
5 years, and all I got is this cartoon duck and a good luck, see you later? Yeah. I don't remember saying good luck.
Yeah,
That sucks.
but hey, at least you got this duck. Here's a duck in your trying time.
One duck, please.
Yep.
Now, if you ever get fired again and you don't get a duck, you're going to be very upset.
Yeah, where's my duck? Not even a duck.
Not even a duck.
United plane hits coyote during takeoff at Chicago O'Hare Airport. FAA investigating. I love coyotes.
Yeah.
I don't like that they eat people's pets, but I mean, they didn't ask for us all to move into their land. They're doing what they can, and I just really admire how fearless they are.
Yeah, and how adaptable they are.
They, you know,
Losing B.
any other animal you think would just see gigantic airplanes and be like, I'm just going to avoid that area. I'm going to stay away from it. I'm going to stick to the woods. But a coyote is like, you know what? There might be some food around here.
Some animal expert is going to know that I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. But I would assume that even a human, but specifically a coyote, cannot even understand the scale and speed at which a plane is approaching. If you were a human on the runway, and all of a sudden a plane was coming in, you wouldn't even have the time to analyze.
I mean, depends what part of the takeoff it is.
It's like when people get hit by trains. Like they don't understand the speed and the power and the size until you're right there.
That's a good point.
So coyotes, and I know I'm not doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, I'm assuming, although this is hijinks in line with the famous Warner Brothers coyote. Where was the road runner?
Yeah.
Flying the plane, most likely.
Yeah, probably. Beep, beep.
Beep, beep. Is it waving out the window as it flies away?
Yeah. A fucking anvil fell on his head, and then he got hit by an airplane.
Securing B.
And then he sprung up like an accordion and started walking away. What are you gonna do?
I'm surprised because all these airports, especially the big ones like O'Hare, they got falconers.
Yeah.
They got falconers. I don't know if those falconers have normal-sized dicks or surgically enhanced dicks, but they got their own falconers, and I feel like, I don't know, I guess coyotes might not be afraid of falcons.
Yeah, well,
Falcons are trained to harass any animal that comes through.
Losing
This
Bravo.
one, this coyote, the least fucks given of any coyote, and he paid for it with his life.
should have sent a road runner.
Yeah.
Peeing is contagious among chimps, and I would say humans as well.
Well, yeah, that's the implication here, is that among primates in general,
It's like yawning.
yes.
Yeah.
There's something about when another, particularly males, when another male pees, you want to do a little pissing yourself.
Yeah.
I guess this is true of women too. They're always going to the bathroom together.
It's for safety mostly, I believe.
No, I think it's because their pee cycles are lining up. When you're friends with someone, your pee cycles, they line up.
No, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like this only happens. It does happen in public because typically, like when you're hanging out, it's like, oh, it's the second quarter. I guess we're all gonna go piss. So everyone gets synced up that way.
Yeah, well, they're doing it.
It's the fifth inning. Time to go take a piss.
The chimps are doing it too.
Yeah. Then we all wait there together.
Hold
And you
hands.
can just feel the heat off of everyone. It's a real communal experience. Yeah.
Japanese aquarium cheers up lonely sunfish with cardboard cutouts of people.
They used, it was Korea that did this, but it would be funny if they used all the stand-ins during COVID that they had for the baseball games.
That was funny.
I think Japan probably did it too, so they got some cardboard cutouts there.
Yeah, well, they're renovating this aquarium, and I mean, you think about it. If you've been to an aquarium, I love aquariums. Went to Long Beach one recently, well, not that recent, but very cool. But yeah, it never occurs to you. Yeah, those tanks not very big. Probably pretty boring for those animals. And they probably do occupy a lot of their time just observing people through the glass.
Yeah.
So when there's no people around, this sunfish was apparently becoming depressed, like not eating. They couldn't think of what to do. So they just made a few cardboard cutouts of people and put the aquarium uniforms on them. And so the sunfish cheered up.
Good.
But
That's a good story.
I would hope that they're like moving the mannequins around a little bit because I feel like it's going to catch up.
Kevin McAllister out there.
Also, sunfish are the most insane looking fish.
Big boy.
They're big and they got an eye on different sides. They're sideways. What is their purpose?
I guess we'll never know.
What's their deal?
Leave it in the comments below. Penguin love life exposed. Cheating common. Divorce rates soar after bad mating season. Male penguin going awooga at too many female penguins walking by.
Yeah, it's I mean, we always penguins, they mate for life. Yeah, turns out not always.
Yeah. They just haven't got caught till all this monitoring that all the scientists have been doing. Scientists stay out.
Yeah, and this isn't new. There was that video like years and years ago of that penguin getting cucked. Like his wife penguin ditched him for a new penguin, and then
heartbreaking.
And then the ex-husband tried to like fight the new husband and got his ass beat, and it was
That's
just
the
real
second most
embarrassing.
sad video behind the guy slipping in oil and begging the person.
The video itself was it was sad, but then the reaction on Twitter, particularly Black Twitter, was very funny. I remember at the time.
Yeah.
People were talking about it as if it was like people.
Anthropomorphizing.
But yeah, I guess like
which is easy to do because March with the Penguins was a very big movie that had a big cultural impact.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess after a bad mating season, if there's not too many eggs, the wife is just like, what do I even keep you around here for?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go find a new.
Hey
man.
boys,
I deserve better.
Guess who's open for business? The United States of America.
And the girls, they do sometimes they don't say let's call it off. Sometimes they just go and try to get some on the side to keep things civil until the guy finds out. Then things blow up. It's crazy out there for penguins. Yeah,
Penguin.
We need a penguin reality show.
They probably tried to do one after that movie.
The Real Penguins of Antarctica.
Yeah. Anyways, that's it for this week's episode of Weekly Weird News, an extra long one for you. We'll be back next week. And please make sure that you like the video. Do it right now. I will wait here patiently. I have to catch a plane. Please like the video. Leave a comment about anything we talked about today. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're feeling like it and you're like, I missed the donation drive. Well, guess what? You can become a member of the channel. You can click the join button. You can click the thank button. You can do whatever you want, but click the like button. Watch our other videos that are popping up over here. We got a rundown of Trump's first week. We got some tech news. See those. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Team deathmatch. Engagement windows open.
This TikToker got 18 months in prison after laundering the equivalent of $11 billion in today's value. And as a response to her sentence, she decided to drop a diss track on the United States government. The stories just keep getting wilder and wilder. That's what's funny about this.
Giving up
Okay, if If I had no knowledge of the situation, I would have never guessed that she was involved in laundering $11 billion in today's value of stolen cryptocurrency. So, meet Heather Morgan. You might remember her if you've been a longtime viewer of this channel, as I've covered her before about 2 to 3 years ago. During the day, she's apparently an international economist, serial entrepreneur, and investor in B2B software companies. I guess she's also an expert in persuasion, social engineering, and game theory. This is according to her. She was also apparently an ex-Forbes writer and TikToker, but what really took the internet by surprise is that she's also a rapper and fashion designer that goes by Razzlecon. And it's safe to say, as we teased before, this is just a whole nother can of worms.
I'm a mother bad. Go on, make me a sandwich. You annoying like itch.
Clearly a generational talent, and she was recently sentenced to 1.5 years in prison for helping her husband, Ela Lichtenstein, launder tens of thousands of Bitcoin stolen from the Bitfinex cryptocurrency exchange back in 2016.
But let me be clear. I planned and executed the Bitfinex heist entirely by myself. And I am the one who bears full responsibility for everything that has happened. While it is true that my wife pleaded guilty to laundering a small portion of the funds, she was in no way involved in the hack itself.
So I guess that's his side of the story. And side note, Ela Lichtenstein sounds like a straight up movie supervillain name. But while most criminals, or well, at least the ones sophisticated enough to pull off a hack like that, would tend to stay low, they did the opposite. Especially Heather did the complete opposite, as not only did she become a rapper, but she also tried to shoot her shots as a TikTok influencer. Not just any kind of TikTok influencer, but a business motivational TikTok influencer, which I guess really goes to show how fake so much of that industry is. But it's also a lesson that we've learned time and time again here on this channel, that influencers often are pretty fake. Because here we have Heather posting TikTok videos on how to, make it as an entrepreneur, a self-made entrepreneur. Meanwhile, her husband stole the equivalent of $3.4 billion at the time of when she made this video. And this video was apparently titled, "How I Built a Multi-Million-Dollar Business in My 20s with Zero Outside Funding." Zero outside funding. Are you sure about that one? And then the other question I have is, if this was actually true, why would your husband feel the need to steal, $70 million at the time in Bitcoin? Sounds like a whole lot of risk for a very limited amount of upside. Or well, $70 million is a pretty big upside, and then eventually it turned into $11 billion. So the upside was there, but in 2016, no one thought Bitcoin was going to be where it is today. But both of them ended up getting slap on the wrist sentences, although the Bitcoin was confiscated. So since I just mentioned it there, we might as well go back in time to talk about how we even got here in the first place. So back in August of 2016, the Bitfinex exchange suffered a massive security breach, and one of the largest crypto hacks to date. About 120,000 Bitcoins were stolen from different exchange wallets in a series of unauthorized transactions. And all of the stolen Bitcoins were directed to one single wallet, which later authorities linked to Ela Lichtenstein, Razzlecon's husband. And just to put things in perspective, when all this happened, as I said previously, the amount of Bitcoin they stole was worth only $71 million. In 2022, when the story broke, that same amount of Bitcoin was now worth over $4.5 billion. Today, the 120,000 Bitcoins equal $11.6 billion. That's a big hack. So it's safe to say they could have won the criminal lottery by now if they managed to never get caught. However, in January of 2017, the first significant movement of that stolen Bitcoin was recorded. And over the years from 2017 to 2022, both Ela and Heather used the most complex and sophisticated range of methods available at the time to launder these stolen funds, including use of fake identities, running scripts to perform automated transactions, layered deposits, darknet and market and mixers, conversion from Bitcoin to even more anonymous coins, and then cashing out through legitimate US-based business accounts. It was a little bit vague here, but I would also assume that there was some trusts and anonymous LLCs involved from, the few states that allow you to do that. In April of 2021, TRM Labs, they detected that about $800 million worth of Bitcoin was sent to intermediary wallets before it went through a private mixing service, which then makes it even harder for them to track the money. But in January of 2022, the IRSCI, which is the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Department, the FBI, and the Homeland Security Investigations agents, they executed a search warrant at the couple's house in Wall Street, and they could find a bunch of really interesting and suspicious things, to put it lightly, that the investigation really needed, such as a hollowed out book that could be used to hide items, a bag of burner phones under a bed, and a bunch of false ID documents to create fake bank accounts. And then the real kicker is some of the electronic devices the agents took, it could straight up link them to the assets of the hack. And when a court issued a seizure warrant, that allowed the confiscation of 94,636 Bitcoin from Hila's wallet. And apparently this is the largest seizure the U.S. Department of Justice has ever done. On February 8th, 2022, the couple was arrested and charged with their crimes. And throughout the following year, from February 2022 to July 2023, they were both likely cooperating with the government to mitigate their sentences. Hila admitted not only to laundering the money, but also executing the Bitfinex hack itself, although he remained in jail until the end of this trial. His wife, on the other hand, was released on bond after posting bail, as the judge for their case believed Heather was less likely to have access to the funds for escaping the country. And throughout all this time,
Yo, it is glitched. I finished this challenge. Damn it.
their social media accounts were just, crickets. There was nothing there until now, because suddenly Razzle Khan, she returned.
I'm sorry I've been gone for a little while. The last 3 years I was battling a Fed case, and I like to listen to my lawyers. Well, guess what? It's over, and I'm very excited that I will soon be telling my story, sharing my thoughts, and telling you more about the creative and other endeavors I've been working on. Razzle dazzle.
Razzle dazzle. So she did return to her old hobby as a musician and release a preview to what she called her jail song written from solitary confinement.
Okay, so the song is called Miss Someone or Stay Strong. You miss someone cause they gone, don't feel alone, stay strong. Remember time nor space can break that bond. Even in death, the soul still lives on. So you gotta stay strong.
Yeah, shouldn't have looted 120,000 Bitcoin from an exchange. I'm sorry for putting you guys through this pain, but now she's giving us advice on if we ever are on house arrest.
I've worn this ankle bracelet for 3 years nonstop. So I posted this video from the real RazzleCon TikTok that was talking about what it's like to have an ankle bracelet and a little life hack that I want to share with you. Want to know a little handy trick if you're
Okay, so it's just interesting editing.
and you have an ankle monitor? So I've had this thing for like 3 years, and you know what? It's uncomfortable. Except if you put a sock, or in this case, I just serged the edges of material. So that's actually a fabric remnant from some pants I made like these. They're just like psychedelic space pimp. Anyways, carrying on.
Right.
Or you can just like cut a sock. That's what I did like the first year when I was more ratchet.
This is like an interesting character arc. We've gone from like business help content, like business motivational content, to hey, in case you're on house arrest, this is how you make your ankle bracelet more comfortable. Oh boy.
Also, someone had a great question about like, is it waterproof or not? They thought it was a stupid question, but I think it's actually great, and I shared my answer. So here it is.
You're falling behind.
As you can see, this is their question.
But then you have more images of her, I guess, flexing the ankle monitor. But obviously, what makes this whole story even more bizarre than what it already is the fact that she's doubling down on her RazzleCon persona, even after all of this. And what recently caught my attention was the headline saying, Heather Morgan heads to prison soon for her role in the Bitfinex hack. But her rap alter ego, RazzleCon, is just getting started. So obviously, that intrigued me. I haven't heard of an update of this case since I covered it last in either 2022 or 2023. So I was interested. That piqued my interest. What I was met with is a diss track on the United States government from her. And it is definitely something. I don't know how I want to describe this music video. Her and Fuzi, they can They were running neck and neck for making music right now. Because the news update of the story is that her husband pled guilty to the 2016 hack and was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. And Heather pleaded guilty to money laundering and conspiracy to defraud the United States. And she was sentenced to 18 months in prison. So I guess she used this as a time to drop a diss track on the government. I don't know why you would ever diss the United States government after you were given the softest of soft sentences possible. I mean, you guys stole what, $70 million at that time, and combined got 6.5 years with good behavior. Take like 20% of that off. But the fact that that 70 million turned into 11 billion in today's money, that sounds like a very light sentence to me. So I don't know why we're making diss tracks on the government after that softball of a sentence. Sounded like they did you a favor there. Obviously, I'm gonna have to censor large portions of this music video because I don't want her cheeks to ruin my ad rates. Thank you.
Weird. No matter what you pay in New York, never enough on your fork.
Where is she standing outside? San Francisco? See if it says in the comments. This is probably the least concerning thing happening in front of the SF City Hall that day. Right.
Weird enough to catch a case. They think I'm from.
Does she actually say anything against the government, or is it just kind of like a... Are there lyrics in here? I'm trying to understand what this is really about. So she titles it Razzlecon versus the United States government. What an interesting last few years it has been for this character arc to evolve. From TikTok self-help business content to this to prison.
Twisted sense of humor, got torque.
All right, we're flexing the ankle monitor here. That's a part of our identity now.
This ain't no free country, it's running on money. Capitalism chummy, old white men hella grumpy, but they love a trashy, even if they chunky. Old money, gold dusty, they really love musky.
Okay, so that was like kind of like, I guess, the couple bars that was actually the diss to the United States government. It was like, oh, it's not a free country. I'm sorry your husband can't steal 120,000 Bitcoin here. Yeah, that was definitely a music video. What the? At least it was entertaining. What a fascinating couple. You could definitely say that there's not that many couples out there like these people. Weird enough, that's for sure. Okay, she was actually interviewed by Business Insider where she said, in quote, Razzlecon versus USA symbolizes many of my thoughts and actual experiences throughout her federal court case. Like all other Razzlecon music videos, throughout my song, there are hidden messages and various social commentary to decipher. Cool. What a fascinating situation. So a lot of people have the questions. Okay, wait, she got 18 months in prison. Why is she out in public filming music videos? Well, she actually responded to that and said her time serving only starts when she self-surrenders, and clarified that this process usually takes a little bit more time for people to essentially get assigned a prison. So it's safe to say very soon Razzlecon will also be in timeout just like her husband. But they should be very blessed with how short their sentences are relatively to other crimes. But I mean, this is really just the start when it comes to like the crypto news in the last couple of weeks, because there's been so many shady coins and memes dropped in the last couple of days. I mean, I would have to make a separate video to cover that. But other than that, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this video. Feel free to drop a subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully. Peace.
The average wedding in the United States costs $33,000 as of 2024, and that's up from $29,000 in 2023. Here are the average prices of wedding features according to the popular website Zola. This is for a wedding of 100 guests, and you can see that most people spend a lot of their budget on the venue as well as food, and please note that this does not include the cost of an engagement ring.
Okay, how much did your wedding cost?
Hostile UAV established.
Well, we were trying to do it cheaply. I think we probably spent about 20.
About 20. 20? 20. 20. That is actually the average cost of a wedding in the UK. is the average cost of a wedding nowadays?
The study that came out recently that said the average wedding in the UK is 17.5.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like that will literally get you a venue.
Marriages and weddings are something that has been around for as long as basically human civilization has been around. And what it traditionally has been used for is not to display the love of one person for another. It's to shore up political alliances, to merge businesses together. And maybe I'm too history-pilled, but when you have consumed as much history as me, it's really hard to view marriage outside of these more like cynical like power dynamics. And now we've added in an interesting element in modern day society in that, of course, we have like the romance angle, which hasn't always been a thing. And something we also have is just your everyday people trying to fit in with this traditional like view of marriage by the wealthy by having these massive displays for society, for social media, for their families, and trying to like cosplay as the wealthy, and some people even going in debt to have these very expensive weddings. And that's like more of a symptom of modern society, because as we're going to read today, weddings have skyrocketed in cost for your average person. I think in the UK, on average, people spend £20,000 for a wedding. For one day of their lives, they spend £20,000. And I know for a lot of people that might seem like a cheap option, because I know it can get even more crazy. So what I want to talk about today is my views on marriages and weddings, but generally like the wedding, the marriage industrial complex, and how all this stuff has just gone so out of control. And just to ask the question, do most people even know what they're getting married anymore? Like, sure, we're all fed this notion that to prove your love to someone, you must marry them. But when it comes with so much other stuff, and it comes with such a massive social display, where loads of people who will be attending this display don't actually even know you, we're completely wrong in associating like these excessive weddings with displays of affection and love. And I just want to talk about all of that today in terms of like, yes, kind of capitalism, because we are talking about like an industrial complex here. And I feel like this video is actually going to piss a lot of people off. Not probably since my video where I said you should grow out of Lord of the Rings do I think I'm going to annoy people as much. And I feel like sometimes when you say stuff that sounds inflammatory, you don't want to listen to the reasoning behind it. So I think some of the stuff I'm going to say today, people are going to feel like personally attacked by what I'm saying, especially if they have certain views on marriages and weddings. So just hear me out. And just know I'm not calling people out for getting married. I'm not calling people out for having weddings, even if they might be too expensive for someone like me, and something I would never spend that amount of money on. And if there's anyone watching this video who actually knows me in real life, I don't think most of the people I know in real life who might watch my videos wouldn't feel like a similar way to me. But yeah, please don't take any personal offense to this. And I wouldn't actually say this to most people in my real life, because I know it's a sensitive topic basically. So I'm reserving it all for you, my lovely YouTube audience, to hear my hot and spicy takes about marriages and weddings. And you can get mad, but then it doesn't actually affect me. So before we go into any of that, please check out my social media. Check out my Instagram. My gaming Instagram is a new thing I've been putting a lot of effort into and I'm really enjoying. But check out my other Instagram accounts. Follow me on BlueSky. That is my only text-based social media I'm using these days. And if you want to support my work going forward, consider checking out the Patreon page. So I did post on Instagram asking people about what they thought about this topic. So I have got some responses. I haven't got all of them ready for the video. So sorry if you sent one. And even if I responded and I didn't feature it, I do really appreciate that. Before we get into it, I just want to talk about this. So Indian weddings are famous for being like these very, very lavish affairs that are super important. And I haven't been to an Indian wedding, but I have been to my Indian friend's engagement party, which was probably like more extravagant than most weddings I've been to. Like there was like really good food, everyone was dressed like so nicely. And the whole time I was just thinking about, you know, someone like me, I would never spend that money on it. But I know how important it is to certain cultures, especially cultures that are more religious. And although I did grow up Irish Catholic, you know, most Irish Catholic migrant groups in the UK, especially like second or third gen, we don't really believe in it, so we don't really give a shit about the traditional side of this thing. But just on the topic of Indian weddings, and I'm not really going to be focusing on this today, but this just proves my point about just weddings in a more cynical light. So NBC, the craziest, richest wedding ever. Son of Asia's richest man marries after months of lavish events. And you guys probably saw this. It's billed as like, you know, the most expensive wedding ever. So what do Mark Zuckerberg, Kim Kardashian and Boris Johnson have in common? The three of them are set to attend the same wedding in India, along with plenty of other prestigious guests. On Friday, the great and the good and a few thousand others are expected to descend on a 25-acre Mumbai convention center owned by Mukesh Ambani, the richest man in Asia, who I think was at Trump's inauguration as well. He'll throw a wedding that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars and has prompted police in the city of more than 20 million to reroute traffic around the venue. So lavish is the party, or a series of parties that the Reliance Industry chairman is hosting for his son Anant Ambani and his fiancée Radhika Merchant, both 29, that has technically been going on for a week and a half. Pre-wedding events began in March with a Bollywood star-studded party at which 500 dishes were served, 1,200 guests were invited, and Rihanna gave only her second performance in 6 years. So yeah, the wedding went ahead. It was crazy. It had so many of like powerful politicians, celebrities. You would have seen the footage. It was a real gathering of some of the most evil people in the world, all for this wedding. And you have to ask yourselves, what is this wedding for? Like, why is this wedding so insanely like lavish and long? Like, yeah, like I said, I know people who are Indian who've got married and their weddings do traditionally take a lot longer. So you have like the engagement party, you have lots of other things. My friend said it was actually like a 4-day wedding in India, and he had an Indian wedding and he had an English wedding. Loads of time dedicated to a wedding, but he isn't insanely wealthy. He's not from an insanely wealthy family. So why is it happening like this? It's just a massive display of power and wealth. It isn't about love. It isn't about celebrating a couple. It's literally like, look how much we have and look what we can do, and let's just make it the most insanely expensive thing ever just to flaunt our wealth and power. Look who we can get to come to the wedding. Jeff Bezos, we can get John Kerry, we can make Rihanna basically come out of her break and perform because we're going to offer her that much money. And this is in a country like India, which just has insane economic inequality, right? So in this society, they're just showing, you know, look how much we are above everything. And in that light, yeah, do you think these weddings mean anything? Are they important to anyone? No, it's just a display, a social display, but also a power display when it comes from a family this wealthy. So that is like the worst case scenario. I'm not saying everyone who does weddings is doing it for these reasons, but that kind of wedding is a massive like throwback to the weddings of the past. And if you read like Chinese history, if you read just even European history, you read about weddings like this all the time, which are uniting two clans or two powerful families. And it's purely about politics. It's not about love. And weddings historically aren't about any of those things. It's like a modern invention. It reminds me of like season 1 of Mad Men, where Don Draper says, you know, love is something created by men like me to sell women nylons or something. Part of the wedding industrial complex is selling us this belief that to show your love and to actually be in love with someone and show your commitment, you must be married. So before we go into like the average costs of weddings in the UK and what some of you guys have messaged me, let me give my take on weddings and marriages, and let's annoy some people, hopefully not too much. So I've been with my girlfriend for 12 years and I'm 29. So when I meet new people, I had a conversation, I think, just before Christmas with someone. I told them, like, why haven't you married her yet? And I've had people on YouTube ask me that as well. When I post about like us being together for a long time, they're like, well, why haven't you married her yet? And I'm always so confused with that question, because I'm like, well, if I say I don't want to, right? Everyone's going to think I'm like a bad person and I don't love her, because the assumption is if you don't get married after a significant amount of time, you don't actually love someone and you don't want to commit to someone. And I used to actually say, and I have been re-examining my belief making this video, I used to say, yeah, I understand if you meet when you're like 35 and you like want to start a family and you want to show that commitment through marriage. But also I'm thinking, like, do you also want to have children with someone that you think won't commit to you unless it's legally binding? I just don't really understand that. Maybe because we've been going out for so long since we were a lot younger, I don't think I need to show my commitment anymore. And for me personally, a wedding doesn't actually mean anything, because obviously, yeah, I love my girlfriend. I prove that like every single day. I prove my commitment through like, you know, being in this relationship, planning our life together and thinking about the future together. I don't need any sort of legal agreement, especially when we don't own a property, we don't have children or anything like that. So to me, there's absolutely no rush. Just because we've been going out a long time doesn't automatically mean we should get married. Now, I understand it is different in different countries, even between America and the UK. At the same time, I just think it's a bit of a bizarre belief that to prove myself, I have to propose tomorrow or something. And thankfully, me and my girlfriend are on the same page with this as well, because, like we're going to get into a bit later, weddings are expensive. And we are both self-employed. So when you're self-employed, people who maybe have never been self-employed, you're like always thinking about money because you see very clearly how much you're earning. And in my case, I have a big billboard on my YouTube homepage which tells me how much I've made in the last 4 weeks. And I look at that every single day. So when I have a break, like I recently have had a break, YouTube is telling me, yeah, your income's really bad this month because you had a little break for the first time in a year, right? And that is always in my head. So the thought of then spending £20,000 on one day, and that's meant to be like a good deal these days, is just insane to me. And some of you guys will know, I went traveling a couple years ago and had a really good time, didn't like do it really cheap, wasn't like backpacking and stuff. And I worked the whole time, so I didn't actually even eat into my savings. But I was thinking, even if I didn't work the whole time, I could have easily afforded that trip with wedding money. And then we're going again this year, and you know, I'm gonna be working as usual. But even then I'm like, I could just not work, or I could take it easy on YouTube if I had these wedding savings and I could have this like very nice traveling experience. And to me, the wedding cost makes me both cynical about the whole thing and puts it down the list of priorities so hard. Like, yeah, people will be like, well, you've been going out with someone 12 years, you should get married. You should get married because why? Because that's what people do. That's what society says I should do. So my priorities are go traveling again, then buy a house, and probably one day get married in a way that we would both like want to. Me personally, I don't really care about getting married, but also at the same time, I'm not like totally against a nice kind of like smaller ceremony, which is something I would like to do personally and doesn't feel like inauthentic to myself and doesn't feel like I'm just doing it because I have to and I'm doing it to fit in with like society or tradition, because that is not something I want to do. I don't want to have a massive wedding like my parents. I don't want all my family there. I don't want loads of people I don't know there. I don't want to spend loads of money. And I don't want to do all the traditional stuff because I simply do not care about it and don't feel like I have to do it. And that's the one thing I end like my segment on marriages. Lots of people get married and I don't think people actually know why, because we're so conditioned by society to think this is important. Like, you have to do this. You have to do this to prove your love. Honestly, as a man, I feel like we get a lot of pressure to do this because we're the ones proposing. And I don't think a lot of people ask men, like, do you want to get married? Do you as a man want to get married? Because I think a lot of men actually would have a similar answer to me because of how centered the wedding industrial complex is on the women's experience for a wedding. And because all of this ties up in patriarchy as well, we are sold this like Disney princess fantasy where the man is expected to like sweep you off your feet and then you get married and you're treated as like a princess. And then obviously what happens sometimes is this leads to lots of problems because people become so self-centered on their wedding day. They have this like perfect Cinderella experience. But maybe I am too history-brained. Maybe I have read too many history books. Maybe I've read too many Dune books where the only people in those books who love each other aren't married and everyone who is married does it for political reasons, just like in history. Maybe I'm cynical about it, but I do think most people don't think about why they want to get married. Because, like I said, even me, I was re-examining my own arguments about the commitment. I'm like, well, what? You don't need the legal commitment. If you love someone, you don't need that. Am I asking too much that you should just know each other well enough to know that someone's committed to the relationship? Like, you don't need to get married. And that's when I see these posts on like relationship advice subreddits. They're like, oh, my boyfriend won't propose to me after 4 years. Should I dump him? And I'm like, why? Based on this one reason, I'd say no. I don't know anything about your relationship, but to have the deal breaker of he won't marry me, I just think it's so much peer pressure, so much societal pressure. And I honestly respect people who just don't get married. I know some people in my family who've been together a long time, they're just not married. And I respect it because they just didn't give in to the pressure. They didn't give in to the pressure to have this big financial thing or the pressure to do something just because everyone else does it. I know, I'm a leftist, I'm a contrarian. I don't want to do things that society tells me I have to do. But those are my general views on weddings. Now, that being said, I'm not calling you an NPC for getting married. I know a lot of people really enjoy it. And actually, what has been nice about a lot of my male friends who are getting married Like, they want to get married, right? And I don't think that's always a common thing. A lot of them actually really want to get married. And I think that's a nice thing. Because a lot of men, I feel like, just get dragged along and do it to make their girlfriends happy. So when you see both of them wanting to do it, I think that's a good sign. And it's not someone just giving in because it's what their partner wants and stuff like that. So that's my thoughts on the societal aspect of it. But now let's move on to the cost. This is the actual problem that everyone can agree with, that the cost is insane. No matter how you feel about weddings, and I'm someone who feels about it on one side of the spectrum, it shouldn't cost $20,000 on average to get married to someone you love and have a nice ceremony, have a nice dinner with people you care about, and celebrate a day where you're showing everyone how much you love each other and stuff, right? It should be cheap. But like with every seemingly nice thing in our economic system, everyone is just getting ripped off so people can make as much money as possible. It just feels like I'm saying that in every video these days. So there was a good article in Refinery, just to frame the rest of this video. The Crazy Cost of Weddings Broke My Heart by Tom Rasmussen. And he writes, the last thing I did before lockdown was attend the National Wedding Fair. I was there doing field research for my book about what has become arguably the most important thing about weddings today. Money. The average cost of a UK wedding today is £32,000. I was quoting the figure wrong, it's £32,000. But inordinately priced weddings weren't always this way. If we go back to the 50s, a wedding would have cost about £70 or £2,200 in today's money. Like with most things under advanced stage capitalism, the wedding industry has exploded over the last 3 decades, and your perfect, memorable day, which is supposed to be about uniqueness and love, has instead become about spending to mirror what has been sold to us by pop culture, dreadful influencers, and irresponsible, grotesque royals. We spend in order to fit in order to make our day not stand out as cheap, tasteless, or disappointing. I'd expect luxury from the wedding fair. Perhaps it signals how immature I am or how little money my family had growing up, but I assume that £32,000 would get you very, very far. Turns out, it doesn't get you much. What I'd imagine to be a space for the ultimate in luxury was a travelling circus of late capitalist delights. IKEA flat pack weddings, Prosecco with added glitter, and a row of booths offering pre-wedding surgery consultations. It's not our fault we were told to be obsessed with Carrie Bradshaw and judge if we don't get married in the right way, but I was deeply shocked that this, in the greyest convention centre known to humanity, was the best capitalism could do. This was the most it could make out of the day most people spend their lives dreaming about. He's just asking, why have we forced ourselves into a corner where we spend our life savings on a day just because everyone else is doing it? We're told our wedding day is unique and uniquely special, but to the wedding industry, we're just another paycheck. And it's fine if you're rich, no bother, but if you grew up working class like me, pricey weddings are practically demanded, despite the fact that divorce, which 49% of marriages end in, increases the likelihood of poverty for women by 33%. So yeah, £32,000 is just an even more insane amount of money. And like he was saying, because of the wedding industrial complex, it doesn't even get you much because everything is a massive price gouge. So you're actually spending that money just to get like an okay wedding. Not even like a great wedding, not a luxurious wedding. It's over 10 times the cost of weddings back in the day as well, which would probably have looked way nicer. And he was saying about the pop culture, yeah, like when I watch Love is Blind, this is for you Americans, I actually laugh so much. Maybe it's just me, like old cynical contrarian. How seriously they take weddings in Love is Blind is so funny to me. Talking about it being like the most important day of their lives, just how obsessed they are with it. I just find it so funny. I guess it's way worse in America than it is in the UK. And this industry just totally relies on people being conditioned by society to view stuff in a certain way. And I think weddings are one of the worst examples of it. Like I was saying, when I tell people I'm not married after 12 years, they think I'm a crazy person or I don't love my girlfriend. Because at 29 years old, I don't want to drop £32,000 on a passport wedding that lasts one day and then no one will remember in like 6 months. Now in America, it's not much better. I saw people saying the average wedding in America costs $33,000. And most of this is usually gone on the venue and catering. I'm seeing this TikToker here break down the list which people spend on average and all this stuff. Obviously, you can do this stuff a lot cheaper. Like I'm seeing like dress and suit there, $2,000. Like the suit I bought recently, I think was like £100. And I bought it for someone else's wedding. And I'd be happy enough to wear something like that to my own wedding, maybe change the color a little bit because it was all black, but I looked good in it. I liked how it felt. I wouldn't spend £2,000 on it just because someone told me, yeah, you must spend like £2,000 just on the suit. You must just burn through money because go on, it's your special day. Everyone does it. So just set money on fire and then regret it afterwards. Final point on just that financial topic is, the thing is, we're sold weddings as these days that mean so much to people, so much to people's relationships, so important in your life. So if it is so important and nice, we should think that everyone should be able to have a really nice wedding and it shouldn't bankrupt people. But what the wedding industry do, and it's not just like one like hive mind, but what they do is, yeah, it should be nice, so you should spend as much money as possible to make it nice, and you should do that because it is a one-off day. That's the way they think of it. Because it's a one-off day, you should spare no expense. It's a one-off day that most people won't really remember or think fondly of going forward. So we should make that more affordable for people, because the people who will enjoy it the most are the people closest to the bride and groom. So going on to the final part of the video, just people messaged me different thoughts on what I was asking. I just wanted to read you them and react to some what they're saying. It's all relevant to the video, not in any particular order. So one post saying, in regards to your story post about weddings, me and my fiance are going through wedding planning right now, and what struck me most as the most ridiculous throughout the whole process was the cost and rule each venue had. The first venue we looked at was $6,000 for the day, and while it was a pretty location, it wasn't $6,000 worth of pretty. It was basically a farm with the ceremony site being under the hanging branch of an old oak tree. Pretty, but not $6,000 pretty. And the suite for the groomsmen and bridal party was essentially a couple of small garages. And on top of that, they had rules where to serve alcohol. We had to hire both a bouncer on top of a bartender. Another place we looked at didn't even let you bring outside food. You had to pay the jacked up rates for their in-house catering and alcohol. Fortunately, we found a better venue that gave us much better value for our money, though we still had to make a few compromises with the venue rules. So down in the comments, if you're someone who's gone through the hell of planning a wedding, let me know the most insane cost, the most surprising cost maybe. It's like when people buy houses and you hear about all these costs that you'd never even thought about before. That's what I'm thinking about with this comment here. And yeah, like they're saying, all these arbitrary rules just to make you spend as much money as possible. Like this person was saying, it's a nice location, right? So you think, nice location, let me rent it out and I can make it a little cheaper by bringing my own booze, bringing my own food. No, you're not allowed to make it a little bit cheaper for yourself. Let us extort you a little more, because we know that society places such an importance on having a nice wedding, and people might look down on you if your wedding isn't that great. So just pay the jacked up prices. You know you want our catering more than you want to, I don't know, cook your own food. So that's an interesting one there. So most people I'm keeping anonymous, but Isaac messaged me saying, me and my wife wanted to have an outdoor wedding in the forest and thought with some minor decorations and paying for the venue itself, it would be a max of $3,000 with a max of 50 guests. By the time a year had passed, we had got to the day of the wedding and we had over $10,000 spent on 2 credit cards. The pics of the wedding are on my page. It went great, but we are still trying to work off that debt. I don't regret the wedding. It was magical, but I know for a fact that if we did it again, we would have done it with 5 people and bought pizza afterwards. $10,000 in debt while living paycheck to paycheck has held us back by years. The one thing people don't think of is that the hubbub and family involvement in a wedding is what often multiplies the price. Things fall through and you're forced to go a more expensive route. But you also feel enormous amounts of pressure from family who are excited and want it to be a huge day. We had financial help from 2 parents and was still stuck with 10 grand on credit cards. Me and my wife were together for 5 years before getting married. We only did it because we thought it would be cute to be husband and wife. We aren't the type that places any real importance on marriages as an institution or adhere to any gender roles, but we still got slammed, just like any wacko traditionalist couple. That's a really interesting one, and I've spoken to someone recently just about the cost of their wedding and how it's just increasingly going up and kind of getting out of control. And I've spoken to other friends who've been married where this has happened too. And like Isaac was saying, you know, you just think, can I have a nice little wedding in a nice little location? Because it would be nice to be husband and wife. It's just a nice thing to do, which I totally respect and stuff. And then it still turns into the most expensive thing ever, where it would actually put you in debt, because everything just has to be an extortion these days, particularly when it comes to weddings. And also something Isaac touched on there, family pressure, not something I really spoke about because I can't really relate. My parents, first of all, wouldn't lend me any money to get married because they don't place importance on it. Like I said, they had a big traditional wedding and they regret how much they spent on it because just invited loads of people they didn't really know because it was expected of them. But like with Isaac, my parents had that massive expectation. Their parents were all first-gen Catholic immigrants. they were all religious, so they expected them to get married in a church and have this big Irish Catholic wedding, which means, of course, a massive venue, loads of booze, and loads of pressure, and people getting involved that you don't want them to be involved. And yeah, like that just sounds like such a nightmare. Like my parents are really chill with stuff like that. If I told them to not even get involved, even if I was having a big wedding, they would just let me get on with it, like they have done with me for like most things in our lives. Like they're pretty chill that way. But at the same time, I also know people who have different family dynamics, and you also don't always get on with your family. Like loads of people, and you might relate hearing this, I'm not talking about myself because I get on really well with my girlfriend's parents, but loads of people don't get on with the in-laws. So you could have a situation where you hate your in-laws and they're derailing your wedding because they're forking up a bunch of money for it and they want it a certain way. And I know so many people watching this right now will be thinking, yeah, that happened to me. And that is just such a joke. Again, that is why things like this just turn me off from getting married, because it just becomes this social display, this family social display of, look how great my wedding was. Look how great my daughter's wedding was, which you went to, because, you know, I made it perfect for her and we got involved and stressed them out so bad. I actually can't think of anything less romantic than having a massive wedding with all my massive Irish family, which I don't really speak to anymore, and also having the experience of having like really, really intense in-laws who want everything perfect. Like, yeah, it seems like the most stressful thing ever. And in that context, if you're doing that, not saying Isaac did this, but waste of money completely. Waste of money because you're paying all that money to be stressed out and you're doing it for everyone else. That's the one thing I was thinking about when I said, I don't think people understand why they get married. You're doing it for everyone else. Do it for yourself. If you want to get married, do it for yourself. You don't have to do all the conventional stuff. You don't have to have all this crazy excess. Just do it the way you want. And if your family don't like it, then go fuck themselves. Like, genuinely, if anyone is struggling with this, I would say just be yourself and make it nice for you, because that's the main thing. And if I get married one day, you know it's going to be totally because I want to do it a certain way and I'm going to have it a certain way. And if I don't want someone at it, they're not going to be there. So just kind of on like the cultural aspects of why people want to get married. So someone else messaging me, I got married in 2021 and we just did the legal ceremony, partially because of COVID and partially because we don't really have a big family or social circle. So throwing a big wedding would have been a waste of money. I am sad though, because I didn't get to have a big fairy tale wedding like so many people advertise and play up to be so important. Maybe we'll throw one in future, who knows? And I just asked them, you know, why do you mostly regret not having the stereotypical wedding? They say, it's mainly because of the indoctrination you're subjected to as a little girl. For example, Disney movies glorifying the princess finally finding her prince and celebrating with a luxurious wedding, and it makes me feel like I'm missing out. I know at the end of the day, it's just another branch of patriarchal brainwashing, but yeah, that's basically it. And just to expand on this, Jaina messaged me. We had a bigger conversation about this, but I found this part interesting. Just about the differences between UK and US weddings. So the best thing about UK weddings is that you can invite co-workers, parents, friends, and friendly associates to the after party at the end of the night. The US doesn't have this concept. If you're inviting someone to your wedding, you invite them to the whole thing. So you have to pay for 100 plates and rent venues that fit that many people, unless you do go really small for the whole thing. But of course, there are other pressures that push most people away from eloping or having small courthouse weddings. And yeah, that is a big feature of UK weddings. I've been invited to 2 weddings where I only got invited to the after party because people hated me, basically. Because I don't drink, I don't even know if there was free booze. So I basically cost them nothing at all. I just showed up to the venue where you didn't have to sit down or anything, and I probably ordered myself like a Red Bull or something. So again, that's a good thing about, if that is the case with UK weddings, you can just have that. So if you have an extended friend group, and I went to someone's wedding party who was from my university, who I hadn't seen in a while, nice, they invited me, and then we just went there, not much expectation or pressure, and then you have a nice time and you just go. And honestly, I prefer being invited to the after party. You just might not feel great if all your friends get invited to the main bit and then you're one of the few ones who gets invited to the after party, because it's a weird ranking, isn't it? Like weddings, where it's like, yeah, you're the shit friend, you can come afterwards, where you're my good friend, so you can come before. I know that's not the way it works, but it does kind of feel like that. But also what the other person was saying about like the culture, about like the fairy tale we're sold. Yeah, that just plays into what I was saying earlier. Like, we're just so brainwashed, and I know it's probably way harder for women who grow up like in Western countries to think of it this way, but we're just so brainwashed to think of it as like this fairy tale. And it just has to be so perfect, and it has to be what everyone else does. One more anonymous post. I'm an American Croatian, and Balkans are usually like, oh, we need to have a big wedding, but I'm a first-gen American. My parents fled during the 90s when Serbia did its thing. We live in New York and got eloped with like 20 people who are close fam and friends. And just for the elopement, it was $1,000. And then to do the haul was an additional $10,000. And then our honeymoon to Japan was $3,000 for the whole trip. And all of that was on the cheaper side. Well, I say the $3,000 is worth it for the Japan trip. But yeah, even like having a humble wedding, 11 grand. Just so ridiculous. Like, no one can achieve this dream wedding if just the bare minimum is priced at such an extortionate fee. And just one more, actually. I had one more post on the other side of things, kind of like, you know, having a big wedding doesn't prove you love each other. Contrasting this to like the billionaire wedding. Neve messaged me saying, my husband and I eloped. We went to the courts, signed legal documents, and a clerk officiated and married us in the parking lot by a tree. We had one friend there as witness, and it cost us $86. And that was in 2003, and we are still married. So that is the cheapest wedding we spoke about there from Neve, and it proves, like everything I was saying, having big, expensive weddings means nothing about how much you love a person. You can have a cheap wedding and, you know, be still together after so long. So many people have the most expensive weddings ever and get divorced, like, within, like, a couple years. I'm not even joking. I've heard this story a lot in the UK. People have massive weddings, get divorced within, like, 5 years. Because most marriages do end in divorce. So if you are getting married, you have an expensive wedding, one day you're gonna look back and be like, I wish I didn't fucking do that because I'm not even with the person anymore. So yeah, like I've been saying this whole time, weddings don't mean anything when it comes to romance, when it comes to love, when it comes to commitment. It's society brainwashing you that you should do a thing because everyone else does it, and it's the done thing. Now, the one thing I didn't talk about, yeah, if you have children or whatever, or you own a property, I can understand to simplify legal things. Getting legally married makes sense. But I'm still not going to accept the gaslighting that you just must get married if you love someone and if you're going to commit to someone, because, again, I don't feel like your relationship is that strong if you're not doing it for a variety of reasons. Like, for example, if you're not doing it for, like, commitment, legal reasons, housing reasons, and children, if you're just doing it purely for, I want you to commit. We rent an apartment together and have no money, and we've been going out 5 years, but if you don't marry me, you are not committed. Like, that type of bullshit that I've read online, like, no. Let's just stop that, please. Americans, stop infecting us with all this wedding culture. I feel like we're never going to go back. But yeah, that's it for the video. Weddings, dare I say, a lot of them are scams. Will that make people mad? So hot or spicy take, people get mad at. For the most part, weddings are scams. You're brainwashed by society to believe you need it to display your love. You're brainwashed by Love is Blind and Disney princesses to believe that you have to have this thing. You're brainwashed to believe you must drop 50K on a wedding or even more just to show everyone how much you love each other. And you're believed to think this is all normal, and just for one day of your life, you should drop a life-changing amount of money that could be better put to use, I don't know, buying... The lasting image for me of the inauguration was seeing all the tech billionaires and millionaires standing together in a very prominent position as one of their own. JD Vance got sworn in as the second most powerful man in the world politically. Now, what I want to talk about today is not so much the inauguration. Of course, I do want to talk about that a tiny bit. It's more what it represents. And we saw Joe Biden, bizarrely, in his closing speech, talk about an oligarchy forming in the United States. And I would totally disagree with it forming. It's just the mask has been dropped, the veil has been lifted. There is no, like, pretending it's a democracy anymore. It's just like, this is the election of a new billionaire president. Here are his masters. And this is just Russia. This is just the American version of a capitalist oligarchy. So although it's not exactly the same as Russia, which just has a straight up sham democracy all the time and that just one person is the ruler, America really isn't much better. And Joe Biden talking about the oligarchy forming is funny because all of these people who are now helping Donald Trump used to help the Democrats and also would help the Democrats again if it was in their best interest. And that's what I want to talk about today. Like, sure, this oligarchy is now basically revealing itself to everyone, being like, here we are, what are you gonna do about it? It's really just something that's been brewing for a long time. And of course, we're gonna have to talk about Elon Musk. I'm really sick of talking about this guy. When I used to make videos on him, no one cared. Like, I'm talking about, like, I don't know, 2018 to 2021. They were like my worst viewed videos. And now I just have to talk about him all the time because of what he represents. So don't worry, we're gonna talk about that salute. We're gonna talk about him clearly being high out of his mind, and talk about the media gaslighting around it afterwards to just show you, and I hope for a lot of people watching, show you who really rules America. It is just, you know, the capitalist class, it's the 1%, and democracy has always been a lie for Americans, and just because, you know, you might have voted for Kamala Harris and thinking that would solve all the issues, please, liberals watching this, that wouldn't have solved any of your issues, and these problems would always still emerge. It's just they've emerged quicker under Donald Trump. I haven't been mentioning this as much lately, but check me out on Patreon if you want to support my work. Become a YouTube member, and also check out my social media feeds. Obviously, for people who hate the billionaire class, you'll find me on BlueSky. I do sadly have Instagram accounts and stuff, but BlueSky is my main social media at the moment, so go follow me over there. And let's get into the rest of the video. So while I was having my Donald Trump chocolate, my 47th anniversary Donald Trump chocolate out of my September 11th mug that my girlfriend bought me back from New York.
I knew I wouldn't hate it. It's pretty good. It tastes like those gold coins you get at Christmas. Tastes like the chocolate inside of that. So my review for the Donald Trump 47th President Special Edition chocolate bar is probably like a 6 out of 10.
I had left it on the TV, so I walked out of the room where I was just, you know, chilling, and it was so weird. I wasn't really paying attention, but I walked in the moment he got sworn in, like his last words kind of felt like a movie or something, like, you know, in a movie when you see like random historic events but only the main part. It felt like that. And I was just watching it thinking, like, this is just like the beginning of the end. As a British person, you might say, well, why do you give a shit about America? I obviously just give a shit about the human race, but for America especially, seeing this, like, display of just, like, oligarchy, why it depressed me is because these people are going to be in control of so much stuff that affects our lives. Like, sure, you could maybe make an argument, Donald Trump's foreign policy is not going to be that much different to Joe Biden, and I'm sure it won't be in many ways, but also like Robert Kennedy, all the anti-vax shit, all the deregulation shit, all the anti-environmental stuff. It's just such a disaster that Donald Trump won, and I mainly blame the Democrats as well as, you know, the general economic system that he has won again. But the one person you couldn't help but notice was the high man-child in the background. Like, this guy has clearly not slept much, and he was clearly also high as well, because some of the stuff he was doing was so bizarre. This is before he did the salute, by the way, and it's clear, like, this is a guy who probably never sleeps. And as someone who has had that, like, Twitter addiction rotting my brain before, where when you get certain amounts of engagement on social media, it is hard to sleep, I can just imagine this guy just never sleeps, and he's just always on drugs to keep him functioning. So you had all that embarrassing stuff in the background that he was just making a fool of himself. But now let's talk about that salute. So clearly that salute was a Nazi salute. I don't know anyone who could debate that. I'll play a video for you now. Here is Elon Musk doing it, and here is just like a rando fascist who's all masked up doing it. Looks exactly the same. Now, my one take on this isn't that it wasn't meant to be a Nazi salute, as people have been saying. It's that Elon Musk did it to draw attention to himself, and he did it for 4chan. How sad is that? He did it to get attention on 4chan. I'm not even joking. That's why he did it. You might say, yeah, he's a fascist, and I would agree. I've called him in the past an opportunistic fascist. Do I think he's sitting up all night reading Mein Kampf and studying National Socialism? No. I don't care to make a distinction between a National Socialist and a fascist generally, but this is the even more sad part. Elon Musk didn't do that salute because he couldn't contain himself and he was a fascist. He's just high out of his mind and doing it for attention. He's just that kid at school who does loads of bizarre stuff to draw attention to themselves. As like a 55-year-old man who also happens to be the most powerful man in the world, right? That's what we're looking at. But obviously, it's like disturbing he would do that, right? Obviously disturbing. And like trying to be like this edgy meme as like who he is just so insanely embarrassing. What is disturbing though is the reaction to it. And this is the end point of liberal identity politics. we have an organization like the ADL saying, no, Elon Musk didn't actually mean it like that. This is an organization that calls anyone who would have some... They'd call me an anti-Semite for that, by the way. So I'm an anti-Semite because I want sanctions on Israel, but Elon Musk does a fascist salute, and it's actually not one. That is the same organization, by the way. So let's have a look at some of the reaction, because obviously the media terrified of being sued by Elon Musk, so they don't actually write it as it is, most of them. But this is like what people are saying, which is so insane. So apparently someone who works at Newsweek saying, as a person with a strong track record of criticizing Elon Musk, I feel extremely confident asserting that this wasn't a Nazi salute. Elon Musk is a friend to the Jews. This man has Asperger's and he has thrown his heart to the crowd. We don't need to invent outrage. I saw another person saying about him being basically autistic. He has Asperger's. His movements aren't always coordinated. You're making fun of someone with a disability. You're disgusting. So again, that's one point of identity politics. What's so funny about this? In trying to defend people with autism, they're being ableist. They're saying if you have autism, you don't know right from wrong, so you're gonna do random shit like, I don't know, make a Nazi salute. I'm sure you know people with autism. A lot of you guys watching this will be autistic, and a lot of you guys wouldn't have randomly busted out a Sig Heil in a public event. Acting like autism makes you spontaneously